Well, we are now at the Archie Creek camp, which is located approximately 3 miles east of the Blacks Fork River. From the historical record, the Archie Creek camp was really a tie cutting camp in the late 1920s, early 1930s for the Standard Timber Company. Many of the Standard Timber Company camps were in different grades. So the first type is a commissary camp, which is a large multi-cabin domestic and store setting. The second type of camp is a larger camp with several cabins, a bunkhouse, a barn, a cookhouse, and several residences. And then the third type of camp is an isolated cabin or two in a cutting field. This is the middle of the two camps. Archie Creek Camp is composed of 7 different cabins spread throughout these different woods. And then we have this cabin, which I'm standing in, which is one of the smallest of the cabins. It measures 12 foot by 10 foot wide. It has 2 windows and a south-facing door. And so this is what we would typically see for maybe 1 or 2 person cabin. This was obviously constructed post-1900 by the presence of nothing but wire nails. We have the interior of the cabin has been faced, which means that they used a broad axe to take the log out of round and make it flat on the inside to make a nice living surface, versus the exterior of the cabin is still in full round. The cabin was chinked on the exterior with locally acquired clay and rock. On the inside, they used small strips of wood to chink it together, making it very airtight for the winter. And so this cabin was probably used by maybe the camp foreman, maybe someone of the upper echelon that could use a little bit more private space. Across the road behind us is the cookhouse, and then behind me in the woods are the remains of the other cabins. So this is a little bit of an isolated cabin, which maybe indicates it was someone that was of a little bit higher standing in the camp. And so what we have is a slowly deteriorating cabin. That's one of the problems with the tie cutting industry, is all the remnants are organic. And so we don't have a lot of these cabins that are going to last beyond probably another 50 years. And so preservation of these cabins is really paramount. This entire camp was nominated to the National Register in 2015 for its association with the tie cutting industry during the 1920s and 30s, but also because of its standing architecture. It gives us an indication of what the tie cutters built, how they spatially organized their camp, and then who lived where and what kind of living space they had. And then listed under criteria D, which is for data potential for archaeology. This camp, even though it's close to a large 1980s logging road and the main North Slope Road, has not seen the heavy looting that we saw at the Cohen Carter camp. So we don't have the same evidence of people bottle hunting on this site. And so that means that the archaeology is more intact, which means that we can learn more about the people that lived here. And then knowing the different cabins are still extant, we can look at who lived where. Is there a social stratification? Is there some ethnic identity? Because we know from the census records and from the oral history of a ranger, Archie Murchie, that the camp demographics during the 19-teens to the 1930s were largely Swedes and Finns. But then this camp in particular, somewhere on Archie Creek, which this camp is located near, Ranger Murchie talks about a group of Okies from Missouri that were logging out of this area. And so maybe this camp is actually someone a little bit different than the Finns and Swedes that we typically see in most camps on the North Slope.